Hobson's choice and authoritarian environmentalism. Those who know me, those who know our efforts, understand that we are absolutely opposed to anything that is even hinting at authoritarian or totalitarian control and forcing people to change their ways. Hobson's choice refers to a situation where an individual is offered only one option, effectively rendering the choice as being nothing more than illusory. The term originates from Thomas Hobson, a 16th century livery stable owner in Cambridge, England, who provided customers with the choice of either taking the horse nearest the stable door or none at all. This practice ensured that all his horses were used equally. So, it was not without cause, but the fact remains the choice is an illusion. In modern usage, Hobson's choice describes any scenario where one must either accept what is available or face no alternative. This concept clearly demonstrates the requisite constraints on true freedom of choice, often in contexts where options are ostensibly provided, but in reality are severely limited or even non-existent. Hobson's choice is frequently invoked to critique situations where individuals or groups are presented with decisions that lack genuine alternatives, thus questioning the authenticity of choice in various social, economic, and political contexts. Environmental authoritarianism is a governance approach that emphasizes centralized, top-down decision-making and the implementation of environmental policy. This framework often involves the restriction of individual freedoms and limited public participation in order to achieve environmental goals more efficiently and effectively, ostensibly at least. Proponents argue that urgent and significant environmental challenges, such as climate change and biodiversity loss, necessitate swift and decisive action that democratic processes may hinder. In practice, environmental authoritarianism can manifest in various ways, including strict regulatory controls and the enforcement of conservation measures, which have far too often been created by unelected and unaccountable regulatory agencies, and the imposition of what are ostensibly sustainable practices without public consultation or concern for their economic or even sociological sustainability. Governing bodies employing this model may easily and in good conscience prioritize individual outcomes over democratic procedures, believing that the former can be achieved more readily through authoritative measures. Critics, however, contend that such an approach can lead to the suppression of civil liberties, reduced transparency, and the marginalization of local communities and the general populace. Think about the guy that dug fire breaks on his property that went to jail, or the people trapping rainwater and getting fined. There's so much overreach. Never mind people trying to force others to change their ways, ostensibly for the greater good. The debate over environmental authoritarianism centers on the trade-off between environmental sustainability and democratic governance, raising some critical questions about the most effective and ethical ways to address pressing ecological issues, while at the same time respecting human rights and the participatory processes of a democratic society. The current focus on environmental management should encourage debates about the tension between the urgency of environmental sustainability and the preservation of personal freedoms. Unfortunately, there are far too many environmental sustainability experts, listen to the experts, that demand nothing less than the submission of the human race as a whole. The imposition of authoritarian measures in environmental policy, which often entails the curtailment of individual liberties, is argued by some to be a necessary response to the acute crises of climate change and biodiversity loss. However, this path is ripe with challenges. The loss of personal freedoms, coupled with the inability to create environmentally sustainable programs that are simultaneously socially and economically viable, undermines the long-term effectiveness and legitimacy of these approaches. In far too many cases, the only possible end result will be an uprising of the people, revolting against their new authoritarian masters and dear leaders. Authoritarian environmentalism, by its very nature, centralizes the decision-making process, reduces public participation, and limits the scope for local innovation and contextual understanding inherent in the need to create localized solutions for localized and very specific, often culturally, historically, environmentally, economically unique challenges that may vary greatly even within a single location. This authoritarian approach will further stifle creativity and adaptability, which are both requisite and necessary components in addressing the more complex and ever-changing demands of environmental sustainability. The programs that do not consider the social and economic context within which they are implemented are prone to failure, as they often ignore the realities and needs of the local communities they proclaim themselves to be serving, with any meaningful understanding of the individual experience or the local context. Effective environmental governance requires not only an approach that is environmentally sustainable, but also social acceptance and economic feasibility, ensuring that policies are inclusive, equitable, and sustainable as long-term and meaningful solutions. Reintroducing and emphasizing critical thinking is a fundamental step towards addressing these issues. Critical thinking skills empower individuals, particularly those managing the oversight of environmental programs, to evaluate and synthesize information, anticipate potential outcomes, and to make informed decisions that balance environmental, social, and economic considerations. This capacity for critical analysis is crucial for developing more nuanced and effective policies that can adapt to the changing circumstances and diverse and unique local contexts. There is also a much more viable option available that far too few of the self-proclaimed experts continually fail to consider. The first step is to understand the nuanced difference between providing local communities with a meaningful choice, offering them instead Hobsons' choice, where they have no real choice at all, and forcing them to make a decision between options that provide no real benefit to the community members being forced to decide. Giving someone a viable choice differs fundamentally from forcing them to make a decision under conditions like Hobsons' choice or between two unfavorable options. Understanding these differences is crucial in contexts where decision-making autonomy and the quality of options significantly impact the individual's sense of agency and satisfaction. Granted, this is only a matter of semantics, but being given a choice entails offering options that are meaningful, practical, and beneficial to the individual, the family unit, and the local community making the decision. When individuals are presented with viable choices, they have the autonomy to select from alternatives that each provide distinct advantages or meet different needs. The very essence of a choice is that all options presented are genuinely beneficial, allowing the decision maker to weigh the pros and cons according to their preferences, local context, local circumstances, and their individual, family, and community values. When individuals are forced to decide between two options, neither of which provides meaningful benefit, they face a dilemma where either decision is undesirable or, at best, insufficient. This situation can be referred to as a false dichotomy or a Morton's fork also. In such scenarios, the individual is compelled to make a decision, but the lack of genuinely positive outcomes means that any choice made is likely to result in a negative or suboptimal situation. This type of forced decision-making undermines the individual's sense of autonomy and can lead to frustration, resentment, and a perception of being manipulated or coerced. Mind you, this does not negate or seek to ignore the decision-making process, especially in terms of sociological or even scientific pursuits, or in any other scenarios wherein decision-making is necessary to reach the desired or final outcome. It is merely introduced in this case as an example of the individualist and existential nature of humanity in terms of cognitive thought processing as expressed based on individual perceptions and perspectives. So, for an example, in our semantic version, a choice would be, would you rather have chocolate or strawberry? Decision would be, would you rather be spanked with the belt or would you rather be spanked with the hickory switch? One provides a viable choice between two positive outcomes. One is being forced to decide between two negative outcomes. Providing the individuals, the family unit, and even the local community with an actual choice respects the individual autonomy of human nature and the human experience, and at the same time supports the individual nature of human agency, allowing for more well-informed and mutually beneficial outcomes. In contrast, Hobsons' choice and forcing decisions to be made between wholly unfavorable options, or even worse still, full authoritarian or totalitarian control, where the ability of the individual to make meaningful decisions is compromised, if not entirely negated altogether, these coercive scenarios will inevitably erode the public trust, reduce their motivation, and lead to negative perceptions of the decision-making context or the entity imposing these choices. And far too frequently, at least if history is any kind of meaningful indicator, will lead to further oppression and authoritarianism and ultimately to chaos and open revolt. Once again, the most viable option seems to fall in the backs of education, but not in the traditional sense of the modern educational institutions. Rather, providing the means for the people to actively engage in critical thinking and problem solving, and through a clear, open, honest, and transparent introduction of the many relevant facts in the case, engaging in public discourse without censorship, without control, without demands, but engaging in an actual discourse of the facts. Is everyone going to get the message and suddenly see the error of their ways and change their ways accordingly? Probably not. However, better behavior in terms of environmental stewardship can and likely would at least become increasingly common and more broadly accepted by society as a whole. Training in critical thinking should not be confined to the decision makers and managers either, but extended to the recipients and beneficiaries of these environmental programs, ideally through debate and public discourse. By educating individuals, families, and even entire communities about the facts and the importance of environmental stewardship, and following this up with ongoing programs, individuals and communities can be encouraged to engage actively and thoughtfully in sustainability efforts. Such an education should go beyond the mere transmission of information, involving exercises that promote active engagement, and again, public discourse, not censorship, not oppression, not totalitarian control, but a critical examination of the environmental issues, the facts, and how the local community can become involved. One effective method is to involve the beneficiaries of these programs in brain exercises or structured critical thinking exercises that utilize factual data about the environment, not environmental alarmism, not totalitarian decision-making at the top and forcing it on people, but encouraging autonomy and freedom. These exercises can help individuals to understand the integrated and even symbiotic relationship between human actions and environmental health, fostering a deeper sense of responsibility and personal agency. For example, participants can be presented with real-world scenarios requiring them to analyze data, consider various perspectives and proper solutions. And this is especially true for the more agrarian societies where their dependence on the health of the planet is directly correlated to their ability to enjoy an improved median quality of life. This process not only enhances their individual and community understanding, but also provides a tangible goal, encouraging their desire to engage in meaningful environmental practices. The broader societal benefits of cultivating a critically thinking populace should not be overlooked under the broader banner of environmental sustainability. Individuals and communities who are well-informed and capable of critical analysis are more likely to support and participate in additional sustainable practices, creating a bottom-up push for environmental responsibility. This grassroots engagement can complement and enhance top-down policies, creating a more resilient and adaptive framework for environmental government. Given the more close-knit nature of local communities and their societal structures, the decentralized nature of these programs not only serves to benefit the state, but also reduces the reliance on less efficient blanket solutions presented by and taken out of the budgets of national systems without any consideration for the local context or the local requirements and destined to fail. An approach focused on critical thinking also fosters transparency and accountability, which are essential components of democratic governance and being a freedom, not oppression. When individuals are equipped, allowed, and even encouraged to question and evaluate policies, they can hold local authorities accountable and ensure that the environmental programs are not only effective, but also socially and economically beneficial in the long term. This dynamic will help to build trust in the institutions, which is again something that is crucial for the long-term success of these policies. While the urgency of environmental challenges cannot be understated, the loss of personal freedoms and the imposition of authoritarian measures are not sustainable or effective solutions. A more viable path forward lies in reintroducing and fostering critical thinking skills among both policymakers and the general population. Only by equipping individuals, families, and local communities with both the skills and the personal incentive and motivation to analyze and actively engage with these environmental issues on a critical level will it become possible to develop more effective, integrated, adaptive, and sustainable programs. This approach not only enhances the capacity for environmental stewardship, but also strengthens the democratic fabric of society, ensuring that our efforts to protect the planet are both just and enduring and never gain the capacity to result in the oppression or the restriction of personal freedom or censorship or other forms of totalitarian control. If you've got any questions, comments, or concerns, we'd love to hear from you. If you just want to get involved, let us know. Thank you. Bye. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below.